The Detroit Lions just got absolutely shaboinged by the Washington Commanders. 1 seed, team to be in the NFC all year, cannot win a single playoff game. Their defense looked absolutely pathetic. Last week, Brian Flores lost out on the opportunity to get a head coaching job because of how bad the Rams offense spanked the Vikings defense. This week, Eric Glenn has just lost any chance he has of becoming a head coach thanks to Jayden Daniels absolutely decimating Detroit's injury-depleted defense. And yes, I know the injuries hurt this team. I know it's not their fault. I know things could have gone better for Detroit over the course of this year. But at the end of the day, if you're 15-2, you're the 1 seed, you're well rested, you have an additional week of film to watch the Washington Commanders and Jayden Daniels, you have to come up with something a little bit better to stop in. Washington scored at will this game. I cannot think of 2 times they were stopped. Obviously, they had 4th down earlier in the game, but other than that, it just had free range, ran wild on the supposedly vaunted Detroit defense, which had just been shrugging off all these injuries all year and kept chugging, which shut down Sam Darnold in Week 18 to secure the 1 seed. Those guys were not present. They played the Super Bowl and went on vacation to Cancun, and it's been 2 weeks, yet they still have not come back, apparently. A terrible defensive showing from the Lions. Dan Campbell, biggest play of the game, 12 men on the field. A terrible showing from him in that aspect. Offensively, they scored 31 points. Jared Goff, multiple turnovers. Ben Johnson got way too cute and had Jameson Williams, who might be the dumbest man in football, throw a beautiful pass which landed directly in Mike Sanderstill's arms. And you can point the finger of blame at a billion different people. This was a terrible effort top to bottom. Outside of Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery and the offensive line to a certain extent, this was a pathetic showing from Detroit. A 1 seed has not gone out this sad in a long time. That 45-31 final score does not tell you the full story. This game one-sided after a certain point in the first half.
The Commanders played a clean game. The Lions played a messy and sloppy game. We have Jared Goff throwing interceptions through a pick six. We have Jameson Williams throwing an interception. We have 12 men on the field on 4th and 2 with the ability to stop the Commanders only down by 3, where if you stop them, you have a very good chance at driving the ball down the field. Jahmyr Gibbs played phenomenal for the Lions, but everything else was just too messy. And to go back over to the Commanders earlier in the season when Jayden Daniels got banged up and then the Commanders started not playing that great, it looked like maybe they were coming back down to earth a little bit, and myself at least started doubting them because we did not have enough information to really judge who Jayden Daniels is.
We were seeing too many Cliff Kingsbury memes on Twitter saying he stunk in December.
We thought once again it was Cliff Kingsbury rearing his head where he was not that great late in the season. Turns out that wasn't the case. A large degree of why the Commanders were struggling was because Jayden Daniels was not completely healthy, and when he is completely healthy, he's able to execute at a high level. He can throw the ball 60 yards in the air down the field, hit receivers in stride. He can run the ball at a high level, not quite like Lamar Jackson, but as close as you are going to get to a Lamar Jackson, and he is just a phenomenal player. And to speak to Cliff Kingsbury, it is pretty incredible how his career in Arizona ended, where everyone kind of was doubting him. They wrote him off as not a good offensive coordinator, not a good head coach. But looking at what has happened with Kyler Murray since Cliff Kingsbury left, and now what Cliff Kingsbury has accomplished with Jayden Daniels, you gotta wonder, is he going to get some head coaching consideration this year? If not this year, will he definitely be a head coach the year following?
And the problem is, it's a little bit too late in the cycle, and he has not been a strong contender, and they're on this deep playoff run. Next year, maybe we can talk about it. This is not all Cliff Kingsbury. Jayden Daniels has stepped into the NFL and played at this point like a top 5 quarterback. I am comfortable putting him above Justin Herbert after 2 great playoff performances and a fantastic rookie year where really he did not have that much talent around him from the skill player positions outside of Terry McLaurin. I am willing to say a lot of that's on Jayden Daniels. A lot of that is on Kyler Murray being a lot more of a bum than we were willing to accept back when he was young and exciting and didn't have a Call of Duty addiction. So maybe we pump the brakes on the Kingsbury vindication just a little bit. But looking at the Commanders side of things, I know they gave up 31 points. Defensively, they played pretty well. Obviously, Jahmyr Gibbs had his way on the ground and through the air. Besides that, fairly well executed game. Bobby Wagner making plays in the running game. If it was inside the offensive line, inside the box, he was probably going to record a tackle. Mikey Sanders still 2 interceptions, one of which is a little Chuck E. Cheese because the wide receiver is the one throwing it. I digress, though. Very impressive play from him. Marshawn Lattimore, big acquisition. Without him, the Commanders would not have won this game, I don't think. He kept the clamps on Jameson Williams and Amon-Ra St. Brown at points. Whoever he was not on seemed to get the ball and always seemed to get a few yards. So A great defensive game from the Commanders. You question if they can match up with a team like the Eagles next week with a better offensive line who's probably just going to pound it out and who's going to have a much more put together defense, but they've already beat this Eagles team. Looking forward, the future is pretty bright in Washington. Looking at Detroit, the future is less bright.
And the most impressive thing about this Commanders team has been just how infrequently they're punting the ball. They never punt. I think they have the fewest punts in the NFL by a pretty wide margin. They have the best fourth down conversion rate in the NFL by a pretty wide margin. So what they're able to do on the offensive side of the ball, control the game, not just give the other team short, easy fields where they're able to drive down the field, that potentially could give a team like the Eagles issues, because if the Eagles make mistakes in the passing game and the Commanders don't make any mistakes on the offensive side of the ball and constantly keep driving down the field and just getting points, that's going to be a game where the Eagles are going to struggle to win.
If A.J. Brown's self-help coach actually steps up and gets that man locked in and back on the same page with Jalen Hurts, I don't see them losing to anybody besides maybe the AFC's representative. They're going to smash the Commanders so they can actually throw the ball, but hard to tell what that's going to look like until we see the on-field product this evening. Looking at the Lions' future, in terms of players on their roster, they're not going to be losing too many pieces. The O-line's going to get a little bit worse in free agency. I don't think it's time to completely abandon ship. You are greatly concerned that Jared Goff just had the worst game of, well, not worst game of his career, his second or third worst game of the season in a really big moment. That is a concerning factor. You're concerned Ben Johnson is going to go be the Raiders or the Bears head coach unless he miraculously comes back once again. I don't see why he would. That worries you. You still have a very talented team, a very good offensive line, a strong offensive identity with Gibbs and Montgomery, and you're probably still competing in the NFC given some of the talent issues in that conference.
Another issue for the Lions moving forward, it's not the talent they have on the team. They're going to be getting Aiden Hutchinson back. That will significantly help their defense next season. They're not losing Amon-Ra. They're not losing Jahmyr Gibbs. They have David Montgomery under contract. They have Jameson Williams, I think, still under contract for another year. I could be wrong on that one, but they're not losing a lot of talent. The worst the offseason could go for them is Ben Johnson goes to the Bears, Aaron Glenn goes to coach another team, and they have to replace both coordinators. We saw what happened to the Eagles when they lost two very talented coordinators. They kind of fell off a little bit. Now they've come back once they kind of recentered and regrouped after
they lost two more coordinators.
After that down season. So I don't think like we're going to be able to write the Lions off completely. But another thing is they play in the NFC North.
0-3 in the playoffs, by the way.
Exactly. You can argue maybe during the regular season, the NFC North they wore each other down to a point where they weren't ready for the playoffs because they were the best division in football the entirety of the regular season. The Packers won a lot of games. The Vikings only lost.
Let's be blunt about this. All three NFC North teams had their quarterback absolutely shit the bed in the biggest moment of the season for them. Sam Darnold, it was week 18 and the first week of the playoffs. Jordan Love, first week of the playoffs. Jared Goff, his first playoff game. So I don't think that's them wearing each other down. I think it's substandard and non-clutch quarterback play. I will wax on poetically about Austin Ekeler here for a second, who I've confused with Cam Akers several times in the past. The people who just hate this man and push back strongly against him are exposing themselves as casuals, which is a weird thing to say because if you used to praise Austin Ekeler, they would call you a casual. Because he got so many receptions, the fantasy football community vastly overrated how good he was as a player, put him in top 3, top 5 conversations. That is on them, but the people pushing back, acting like Austin Ekeler is some scrub, some jabroni, are equally stupid. He is a good running back who is a very effective receiver and probably should not bear the burden of the ground game, but is a valuable piece on a contending team. Austin Ekeler is a good player, and if you're still trying to say he isn't, you don't know ball.
And pairs excellently with Brian Robinson's skill set.
Pairs excellently with Jayden Daniels and Brian Robinson's skill set. We know the real runner of the football was, although B-Rob had a pretty good game.
That has been our reaction to the Commanders and Lions game. Let us know what you think down in the comments below. Like the video, subscribe, use code Thicc on Underdog, and we'll see you in the next one.